Hey everyone, welcome to May. This is your May Energies Podcast 2019. Have you noticed a certain intensity in your life in recent times, maybe recent weeks? So, we're in a time of pretty much rebirthing, which is not easy, but it is on the evolutionary path. Pluto has just stationed to go retrograde. And what it does is it internalizes this intensity even more, and it's pressing us to make important changes in our lives that are based on releasing fear. Because Pluto is the part of us that has almost phobias or feelings deep inside, uncontrollable energies where we are scared of something. So, can you identify an area of your life in which you are clinging to something because you are scared to let it go? This is the area to make a move and change that. Now, I know as I'm telling you this, that you already are very well aware of the old, worn, used up areas of your life that you're just scared to make a change. There's a fear that's inhibiting your movement forward. There's something you're holding on to. You might look around your life right now and ask, is this really on my path? What about that thing? Is that on my path? Because it's time to kick old paradigms to the curb, and we always want to work with the energy, with the cosmic flow of things rather than pushing against the flow, because this is about cycles. And so that's why I look at the astrology a little bit to zoom in on something that we can use right now that's really to our benefit. Transformation is a decision to evolve. And it takes a lot of energy, right? The psychological energy that this decision to evolve takes can be draining on you. So I want you to take good care of yourself in May. May is a building time. This is Taurus energy. This is manifestation energy. But very interestingly, we're also going through a moment where, in order to build what we really want in our lives at this time, plant the seeds, create that garden, because this is the time, the manifestation cycle, spring. We also have to look at um, parts of us that we've considered handicapped or broken, or that we're scared are broken, how those are hindering us from building the garden that we really want to have. And we would really, everything we want to put in our garden. If we have fears about moving forward in that area. This time reminds me of somebody swimming underwater toward the light. And, when you're down low, I'm not much of a swimmer, but I know the feeling of being underwater and wanting to get up to the top of the lake. And there's some pressure down there. But you don't stop or wait for your air to run out. You keep swimming upwards where you can take a deep breath from the surface. So I guess I'm using this sort of drowning analogy right now because I think there's some of us right now that are feeling this sense of pressure, and like we're not sure if we can get through it. And the pressure is going to be on this pivotal part of you, this part that doesn't really want to let go. So here's a little astro overview. Saturn continues to move toward Pluto. Saturn is this restrictive, restructuring energy, and Pluto is this instinctive part of us that sometimes governs our fears. And so these two are set for a conjunction in 2020. And right now, in May, Pluto is on the south node. I mean, both of these are connected to the south node, which is that karmic space of us. It's that space that we have been so many lifetimes. So many times we've felt like, oh, this is who I am. This is where I've been. These are my problems. But it's a time of purging. It's a time of releasing or excreting old energies from our lives, things that have held us back, perhaps for centuries, if you take the point of view that you are an immortal being who has had many lifetimes. So these are going to be things you're very used to. They're going to feel like you, but not the part of you that you want to carry forward. Old skins. And the key is to look at where you have fear that keeps you trapped in an old system in your life. Like, I have to have this old system. Um, and since this stuff is in Capricorn, a lot of it's going to be around, the good boy, good girl, part of the system, good student gets an A. doesn't want to be a maverick, wants to do what your parents taught you to do, or what society has told you is your role, or where, all the structures that we build around being a citizen and being in a role and playing a role. So right now you're being invited out of prison. This is your get out of jail free card, but you have to do something unfamiliar in order to have this change. And so we are transforming ourselves by letting go of fears that have kept us trapped. Look back right now at the year 2010 to see what issues have now come to fruition in your life. And what you're looking at may be issues that had some wounding in them. So look back to 2010 and see if there are feelings that took you down a dark path in your life. There were unavoidable changes, things that you realized, like this is almost a bottom of the barrel energy when you look back at 2010. I know I had a bottom of the barrel moment then. And you can look back at the beginning of this particular nodal journey over the last 9 years to see what is now coming to fruition. So there's something that you decided needed to change in your life, and you began working on that. And right now you should notice it's very different for you, that particular issue. And we don't usually give ourselves credit for fruition of dealing with hard or difficult issues, things that we've had to climb out of a hole with. But it's just as important as allowing a celebration for things that we enjoy because you've grown over the past 9 years. So what difficulty or difficult issue in your life did you work through around the fall of 2010 when you made a resolution to absolutely change that area of your life? You just looked at it and said, I need to build on this. I need to work on this. Since we're dealing with Capricorn energy, as I said, you may have had to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You may have gained and accomplished difficult goals, things that are difficult for you. It doesn't matter if it was difficult for somebody else. This is all about you, very subjective. Where you climbed a mountain in your life to change the status you felt needed changing. This was a change in status that you realized needed to happen. You worked at it for 9 long years. Well, now it's like the fruition of that, or your full moon moment to stand at the top of the mountain and realize how much you've shifted and changed the Capricorn part of you. So have a glass of bubbly liquid. If you don't drink, make it seltzer or cider. But do something to remember this moment and realize that you have done something very important. But here's the thing. That transformation you accomplished since 2010, that's like climbing up to the top of the mountain, and there's nowhere further for you to go. So it's time to turn in a new direction and go down the mountain. It's time to let go of that transformation and say, bless it and understand that you're now moving in a new direction, and it's away from that status that you created. It's toward a new way of nurturing you, because the North Node right now is in Cancer, and we're moving away from the stiff upper lip, pull yourself up with your bootstraps kind of model, and we're moving into what nurtures your heart. And you're going to find it's not in that old transformation process. It's now a new transformation process. And there's a fear to be let go of in order to embrace this new phase you're in. South Node energy is pastime energy, and we're going to have a lot of it continuing through in May and for months and months coming. When Pluto touches this, it reminds me of a parachute jump where you're falling and then you pull the parachute so that you can land. You've left the plane, you decided to jump, and you're headed to land on your feet in new territory. So in ancient astrology, the South Node is a place of liberation. It's called moksha. It's freeing yourself from an old situation, an old mindset around your status. So just think of it that way, if that's helpful for you. So for many of us, May brings in a weird sense of death in the feeling of becoming free from having to live out the old scripts anymore. You've pulled the cord, and now float and let yourself land safely in this fresh new land. This is a time, as I said, of facing fears that have held us back, and this continues through next year. So typically, places where we're scared of losing something, we'll hold on to the old status quo and refuse to grow or tell ourselves no, even if we could possibly create change in this area. The idea is that we are trying to avoid feeling a sense of trauma, and that is what the fear usually tells us. And always remember that fears that we have are typically things we've experienced in the past. They're not things that are actually happening now or going to happen. Brené Brown has a new Netflix special, and it's all about courage and, of course, vulnerability. And she also helps you reframe failure. And it really speaks to the kinds of blocks we have inside our minds around if we think that we did something and we failed, we're scared to take another risk. And she explains how you can kind of turn that around, how failure is part of the process. So do check that out. She's amazing. So just keep in mind that what you're scared of is something that maybe you went through. Maybe you took a risk in another lifetime and it felt like that was it for you. Like, you didn't get over that. Or maybe you took a risk earlier in this life and it felt like, oh, that just didn't work out for me, so I better not risk again. One thing that happens when we don't follow our evolutionary path, the one that you're getting the whispers about that are urging you to change your focus, is sometimes we'll go into crisis. Some people require a crisis in order to change their lives. Is this you? Do things have to get really bad for you to let go of something? Do things get abusive? Or do you almost feel destroyed before you're willing to let a bad situation go? These are questions for this time. And it's funny because I feel like there's been a thread of this information for a lot of the past year of podcasts. I feel like I've been saying this for a long time. But we've been working up to this moment and we've been asking these questions for a long time. So this is a very pivotal time in our lives for everyone. Everyone has Capricorn somewhere in your chart, and wherever you have it, and if you need me to help you look that up, I can. We can do a little reading on where you're letting go. So if you approach your own growth willingly, it can help you move with the universe in creating this change and going with the correct flow for you. So for example, if you're someone who is stuck in a pattern of working a job you hate, and I have a lot of clients who are in corporate areas where there's just so much stress, so much uncertainty, and this is an area that is breaking down with the Pluto-Saturn conjunction is all the structures in society that govern banking and institutions, education, the medical field. So just keep that in mind that if it feels scary out there, it's because it's meant to be breaking down because we're looking for a new system, new ways of operating within our societal structures. So there's a lot in the corporate fields where there it seems like there's a stuck pattern. So if you happen to be working a job you hate, maybe it's in corporate, maybe it's not, you may actually need to make a change in that area to such a degree that you'll find a crisis in your home life or your family sector that takes you away from that stuck energy of I have to stay at my job, I have to stay at this job. And so you won't be able to focus on that, on being in a job that doesn't serve you anymore. The universe is pulling us into the opposite area in order to help us balance what is old for us, what we no longer should be focusing on. If you're someone who has trouble standing on your own 2 feet and you fear survival and you rely on others and their resources or other resources, those resources may begin to dry up now so that you can learn to occupy that space for you and do what you need to do. If you're someone who has trouble with people pleasing, it's time to stop that. Your own life and identity are going to become your focus. You're going to find yourself more self-centered. Find yourself more needing to focus on, well, who am I anyway if I'm not pleasing this other person? So a great way to use this time is to look at your life and see where you're staying stuck, the old way of doing life, and begin to take steps out of it by looking at its opposite that will balance that. So the thing you're most scared or it's most unfamiliar for you to do. If you feel dependent, move toward independence. If you're a perfectionist, move into surrendering to a more divine idea of who you can be and move out of judgment and new ways how you can accomplish your life without being a perfectionist. If you are very work focused, take your inner child out for a spin in an ice cream cone. If you think you know it all, take a class and learn something new from those around you. If you think your social world is everything, pull into your own creative space and stop letting the social world dictate to you or social media and become a new you through your own creativity. So, this time is asking us to really let go of old fears and the trauma so we can move on and evolve because we don't evolve when we stay stuck in fear. And you are the only person who's powerful enough to stop you. Do you believe this? In order to evolve in our life journey, we have to believe this and know it's true. So don't be surprised if your spirit is rising up right now and changing the tone of your life in some uncomfortable ways, because change is uncomfortable to the body and the mind. This is an incredible life changing pivotal moment where we're all gifted with the new possibility that depends on letting go, jumping out of the plane and trusting the parachute will open, doing the unfamiliar, getting out of that rut. If you're an empath, you're in the process of mastering sovereignty. This means knowing when you've taken on energy that doesn't belong to you and being able to send it away so you can live a life for you. And if you want an accelerated process of this, please do check out my course called Understanding Empaths, where it's an audio course. I mentor and guide you to look deeply at 4 levels of power, spiritual power that you possess to change your reality. And you'll receive a whole toolkit to empower yourself psychically to live a life you love. So don't wait, especially if you're feeling the pull of this tremendously freeing time, pulling on you to release the parachute and live your life without the old fears. So this is a little part astro, part channeled. And I always pull some cards, so it's funny because I pulled these cards right after channeling this. And what I got, of course, was the Eight of Swords. The Eight of Swords is a card of the self trapping the self, keeping a blindfold on, keeping yourself trapped when you actually can get out of the swords, when they're actually not blocking your way, but you're imagining that you are blocked. So this is a mental card. And if you like, because this whole Pluto South Node thing is very subconscious, think of it as an old thought of fear, entrapment that your mind has held for eons. But it's time to become more conscious of what you're scared of so you can walk out of the minefield. It's not a minefield. You're okay. You can do it. And one of the ways you can do it is my second card is the Hermit. The Hermit card is about finding the light within, tuning into the wisdom and the guidance that you have available to you. One way you can do this is just sit and acknowledge that there is a bright ball of light above your head that is shining down upon you, and the light rays are penetrating your body. They're going into your brain, into all the neural pathways of you, into your endocrine system, into your nervous system, into your cellular system. All your cells of your body are being drenched with this light. And this allows you to receive present time intuitive information that is valuable to you to use. So I want you to use this meditation, and this really relates to the Hermit card because from this is going to come our third card, the Page of Wands. The Page of Wands is this energizing influence. It's a message. It's a new start. It's a delivery system of inspirational messages coming from common sources, magazines. It could be online. It could be from a person. It could be from your guides. It could be from you sitting and quietly letting the light come into your head and then pulling some cards for you to find out what's next for you. But it's really about trusting that what's on the other side of you saying yes is better than the no. Than you staying in no energy and I can't do it and I'm not going to do it and I don't want to change this and I'm holding back on me and I'm going to just stick with the old frightened part of me. because this is a time to let go, and we don't always have this opportunity. As the outer structures of society are being dismantled, the part of us that has rigid structures and hierarchies inside of us, like I'm only good if I get an A, I'm only okay if I have these degrees, I'm only okay with this type of structure and being a good girl or a good boy. These are sort of Capricornian ideas. So wherever you have Capricorn, I'm only okay if I pay attention to the old rules. Well, the old rules are no longer applying. Things are changing in our society. It's kind of messy right now because we're in a grassroots upheaval, and people are realizing that you can rely on a higher form of information that's not the old rule set that you've been following and that you were programmed with. So I hope this all made sense to you. It's kind of an intense time. It really is, and that's okay. So if you're going through intensity, this is a time to reach out. I can be reached on through my website on One to Listen for a quick call. I offer coaching. So if you need more help, please don't hesitate to message me and find out how you can get hooked up, or find somebody that you trust and like to work with. But this is a wonderful time to excavate not only what's been holding you back, but also the power that's beneath the fear. So there's always a power being suppressed underneath the fear. And so this is the time. This is the time for you to change. So May is it's a really psychological, deep time, because you're going to be planting your garden. You're going to be manifesting. It's time. So don't hesitate. Don't wait. Um, Pull the parachute, let yourself float, and know that you will land safely. You're a limitless being. So I hope this was helpful to you. Thank you so much for listening. If you're listening to this on YouTube, I'd love it if you hit a like, subscribe, and you can share it as well. And also leave your comments about what you're going through and how this time is impacting you. Have a wonderful May, everybody, and I will see you next month.